Hello, I'm Rob Silver, and I'm a co-owner of Team Manticore, and I'm going to talk about Fallout, a post-apocalyptic role-playing game. While the game came out in 1997, I was a fan even before its release. There was a demo that came with one of the PC gaming magazines of the era, and playing it was just this lightning bolt moment where, if you had asked me what I wanted in a video game, I couldn't have described it. But after playing that demo, I was saying this is the game I want to play. The demo was a simple story about two gangs who got to control the power source, but being a fan of the Mad Max aesthetic already and intrigued by this game with its hex grid and combat system I had never seen before, I wanted more. Fair warning that since the game is over 20 years old, I'm not concerned with spoilers, and this will probably contain some. Part of the experience of playing Fallout in 1997 that you can't really recreate in the modern era is the box and packaging. They really put in the effort to make this little pieces I would normally ignore part of the world within the game you're about to experience. The box art had this mysterious figure in strange armor against a backdrop of a ruined city, and opening the box flap you had screenshots in tiny 1950s style computer displays, and everything was rusty, and there were exposed wires and a big red physical button. And again, this is just the box for the game. At this point, I was still waiting in line at a now out of business store to buy the thing. Then once you bought it, you found the manual while you're installing the game, and normally I wasn't the kind of person to read the manual. Most games at the time, you kind of understood what the core loop was. You shot the Nazi or whatever, and I never played anything like Fallout though, and the manual was interesting enough. I actually read it cover to cover, and it wasn't just 10 pages stapled in the middle with MS-DOS command instructions, but a wire-bound book with a Vault-Tec logo on it called the Vault Dweller's Survival Guide. And they had not only instructions for the game and notes from people within the game, but advice on how to properly duck and cover, and they even had recipes in the back of the book. I still have my original disc and book from when I bought the game in 1997. The whole presentation was genius, and it got you invested before you even made a character. Just for anyone who isn't aware, in Fallout, the plot is that the world has ended in nuclear war, but your family was able to get to a vault and survive. But now the computer chip that controls the vault's water supply is broken, and they don't have a spare. So they have to send someone out into the world to find a new one, or the vault will die. You are the one who's sent on this mission, and you only have a few months to do it. You start out with only a few skills, a pistol, and a single map marker, and then it's kind of up to you to figure stuff out. Meet people and talk to them. Remember what they say or take notes, because the in-game journal isn't very detailed. There's all this stuff going on in the world that's very new to you. Who runs Junktown? Where do the super mutants come from? What is a Deathclaw? And where does Bob get his iguana meat? I liked the dark humor in the writing, I liked the hyper-violence of the death animations, I liked the pop culture references you can find in random encounters. I liked how certain actions had obvious consequences, like if you try to unlock a footlocker in front of the guy who owns it, he's going to shoot you. I liked how many encounters you could find an alternate path to win, like you could play chess with a supercomputer until it likes you, or you could steal an item you want that a vendor has instead of buying it. It was harsh, but not unfair. If you walked into the wrong town with a weapon drawn, they would warn you just once. The world felt big and dangerous, but as you went through it, it felt like your actions were changing things just a little bit. They reinforced this with the ending cinematic, which changes based on your decisions. I liked how they slowly worked you towards bigger towns with bigger problems. Shady Sands becomes Junktown, becomes the hub. The escalation of threat is really well done with the enemies, too. The computer claymation animated heads that would change expression if you pissed them off or made them happy blew my young mind. Taking on the Glow to get into the Brotherhood of Steel was always very challenging, because you didn't just have to fight the robots and have the skills to get through this destroyed base, but you also had to prevent yourself from getting radiation poisoning and dying on the way out. I'm not going to say it was a perfect game. The inventory system was clunky. Sometimes you had to go pixel hunting to find the thing you need if it was on the ground. A lot of stuff blended in if you weren't sure what you were looking for, and And there were a few places in the game where your companions and Dogmeat could just corner trap you forever. Hope you quick saved. On a note about that, I was playing it on a system that had less than the recommended specifications, so saving and loading took 5 to 10 minutes. Combat could last for an hour if more than 8 people were involved, but I would put up with all of it because of how much fun I was having. I spent so many Saturdays in front of the family computer, just not letting anyone else on it because I wanted to finish my Fallout play. What I loved about the game that I didn't have the vocabulary for at the age of 13 was the philosophical questions it posed. Like a lot of other games with a morality system, you can be a saint or a bastard, but Fallout also had quests and characters and factions that didn't fit into those categories easily. I think the best example of this is one of the conclusions of the water chip quest. When you do find a water chip, it's being used. Those using it are ghouls, people who had been mutated by the radiation of the world. You have a few options, the easiest of which is just to take the chip and fight your way out. Even if you do steal the chip and the ghouls don't notice, that's a whole population of people who you killed by taking their source of water. Are the lives of those in the vault more important than those of these ghouls? Then you have groups like the Brotherhood of Steel, which are isolationist and fairly bigoted against the ghouls, but you could really use their help against the super mutants. They also try to take technology that might be harmful and hoard it, because in their mind it's access to dangerous technology that destroyed the world. And you can kind of see their point when you use a plasma rifle on a raider and see him melt, and you're really glad the situation wasn't reversed, but also some of that technology they're hoarding could be used to help the people of the wasteland, but the Brotherhood won't allow that either. I replay Fallout every few years, and I found that my answers to these questions have changed and evolved. This is especially true of the end of the game. Once you have saved the vault in multiple ways, the Overseer thanks you and then tells you that you cannot be allowed back in. When I was younger, I just viewed this as ungrateful. As I got older, I started thinking about how the wasteland has affected my character, that old adage that you can never go home again. I wasn't the me that started the journey and the vault wasn't home anymore. But even more recently, I came back around that the Overseer was wrong, not because he was ungrateful, but because the outside world is going to affect the vault, no matter how hard it hides away. And the wasteland had the very resource the vault was going to die without. In the very first village you find in the middle of the desert, there's a well and farms. The vault is weakened by its isolation and put in further danger by pretending to be an oasis of comfort. And one thing to like about Fallout 2 is that it addresses this very issue in its opening cinematic and the story of how you came to be the Chosen One. If you haven't played Fallout, I would recommend it to people who have patience for a game from the late 90s and like a bleak atmosphere and tone. And that's why I love Fallout. Thanks for letting me talk about it, and happy gaming.